Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome... Donald, I want to ask you, because the next time I see you, you could be the President of the United States. I just wanted to know if there's something we could do that's just not presidential, really, or something that we can do now that we're just both civilians. Like...
Like what? This is... I'm not liking the sound of this. Go ahead.
Donald Trump walked onto Jimmy Fallon's stage, believing he controlled the room. He had controlled rooms like this his entire life, through volume, through confidence, through the simple force of presence that has always been his most reliable weapon. But less than 60 seconds into the interview, a sealed envelope, one calm question, and a carefully constructed timeline trap turned the entire night into something no one in that studio had been prepared to watch. What happened over the next hour was not a debate, not a clash of opinions, and not a political argument. It was a methodical, patient dismantling, executed by someone who had done his preparation and was simply waiting for the right moment to use it. The studio that night did not feel like a normal late-night show. The Tonight Show is usually a place built for laughter, easy celebrity interviews, and the comfortable warmth of entertainment that asks nothing difficult from anyone. But on this particular night, the air inside the building felt different from the moment the audience filed in. Heavier, more charged, with the specific quality that fills rooms where people sense something unusual is about to happen and cannot quite identify what it is yet. The audience was louder than usual, but also more alert. The camera crew moved with extra purpose. Backstage, the production team was working faster than a typical taping. Donald Trump had not come to promote a film or a book or a business venture. He came with one clear and familiar objective: dominate the room, control the conversation, and walk out having performed the version of himself he has been performing for 50 years. Untouchable, unquestionable, and entirely in charge of what the cameras captured. Fallon did not rush into anything. He opened precisely where Trump felt most comfortable. Light questions, easy territory. The kind of conversational warm-up that signals no threat and invites the guest to relax and expand. He asked about recent travel, public appearances, the pace of a busy schedule. Then, as casually as someone commenting on the weather, he said, "So let's walk through it. You were in New York, then Florida, then overseas, all within a few weeks." Trump leaned back with the comfortable ease of someone answering a question that has no wrong answer. "Exactly. I move fast. Always have. That's how winners operate." He tapped the armrest lightly, scoring a point against himself without knowing it. Fallon nodded. "Fast is good," he said, almost under his breath. "But fast also leaves a paper trail." Trump scoffed and answered louder than necessary. "Paper trails don't scare me. I don't hide." A few audience members laughed. A few others exchanged glances. Fallon glanced at the card in his hand, then back up. "Interesting," he said. "Because you just confirmed 3 separate timelines in under a minute." Trump leaned forward slightly, eyebrows raised. "What exactly are you implying, Jimmy?" Fallon shrugged with the practiced ease of someone who has already won the hand. "Nothing yet. I'm just making sure we're being precise. You're very big on truth, right?" Trump's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I tell the truth better than anyone in this room." Fallon nodded again, unhurried. "Good. Then let's be precise. You said that meeting happened before spring ended. You also said the travel happened after that meeting, and you just confirmed the overseas trip came first. So which version is accurate?" Trump waved his hand dismissively. "You're playing word games. Everyone knows what I meant." Fallon tilted his head slightly. "The cameras don't know what you meant. They only know what you said." Trump's posture shifted, straightening, firming up, the body language of someone who has just noticed the terrain has changed. "You're twisting things. That's the typical media trick." Fallon didn't raise his voice or change his expression. "I'm not twisting anything. I'm repeating your words." He tapped the card on the desk. The sound was soft, but in that particular silence, it carried. The audience grew quieter. Something was happening in the room, and it was registering. "Let's lock this down," Fallon continued. "On record, that appearance happened before the private meeting, correct?" Trump hesitated for a fraction of a second, then committed. "Yes, obviously." Fallon wrote something down slowly, deliberately. "And the documents you referenced earlier, those were finalized after that." Trump nodded. "Yes." Fallon looked up. "So now we have a clear order. Your order, not mine." Trump let out a sharp laugh, the kind designed to make the other person feel foolish for pursuing the line. "You act like you caught something. You didn't." Fallon's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Not yet. I'm just building the map." Trump crossed his arms. "You're wasting time. Ask real questions." Fallon leaned back slightly. "These are real questions. You just don't like where they're pointing." The audience murmured. Not laughter this time. Fallon pressed forward, patient and relentless. One more thing. You said earlier tonight that everything surrounding your history is clean and straightforward. Do you want to stand by that statement? Trump stared at him. Of course I do. 100%. Fallon nodded once and underlined something on his card. Trump felt the shift then. The confidence in his posture turned sharper, edgier, defensive. You're trying to trap me with technicalities, he said. Fallon didn't deny it. No. I'm letting you trap yourself with your own timeline. That line landed differently from everything that had come before it. The room went quiet in a different way, the way rooms go quiet when something has just been said that cannot be unsaid. Fallon placed the card flat on the desk, rested his hand on it, and looked directly at Trump. You've now locked in your version of events. There is no walking it back without contradicting yourself on camera. Trump forced a smile, but it was tight. We'll see about that. Fallon gave a small, unhurried nod. We will. And the audience will too. Silence filled the studio. Trump did not like silence. He had one instinct in the face of it, and he deployed it immediately. He leaned back in his chair, reclaimed the smirk, and aimed directly at Fallon. You know, Jimmy, he said, volume rising, people don't really take you seriously. You're a nice guy, sure, but this show, it's fluff. Nobody important watches this for information. A few nervous laughs broke out in the audience. Trump read them as permission to push harder. You smile a lot, you play games, you pretend to be harmless. But let's be honest, you've never actually challenged anyone powerful before. This is new territory for you, he pointed casually toward the desk. Without the cards, what do you really have? Fallon said nothing. The silence stretched past normal television timing. 5 seconds, then 7. The cameras did not cut away. In the control room, the producer leaned toward the audio engineer and said quietly, ratings just jumped. Fallon heard the faint buzz in his earpiece and did not move. He let the moment sit in the air, thick and uncomfortable, and let Trump fill the space with more of his own words. Trump took the bait. See? Nothing to say, he said, spreading his hands like a man who had just won an argument. That's what happens when someone steps out of their comfort zone. Fallon stayed quiet. His posture shifted just slightly. He leaned back, maintained eye contact, and let the stare sit there doing its work. Trump pushed again. You wanted attention tonight? Congratulations, you got it. But tomorrow, nobody will remember what you said. Fallon finally lifted one eyebrow, barely, just enough to register. He glanced briefly toward the camera, then back to Trump, and said nothing. That sustained, unbroken silence hit harder than any insult could have, because it gave Trump's words nowhere to land. Trump leaned back, crossed one leg over the other, and nodded to himself. He had mistaken the split reaction in the audience for victory. That's what I thought, he muttered, half smiling. Fallon finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, he placed both hands flat on the desk, not responding yet, just landing back in the room with the unhurried confidence of someone who has been waiting for this exact moment and knows there is no rush. The producer's voice came through his earpiece again, urgent and quiet. Hold it, this is peaking. Fallon nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then he reached beside the desk and placed a thick sealed envelope on the surface between them. The room reacted immediately. Gasps from several seats, a ripple of whispers moving through the audience. Trump let out a loud, dismissive laugh. Oh, come on, what is this? A magic trick? A fake prop? You really think an envelope scares me? Fallon did not smile. He rested 2 fingers on the edge of the seal. This isn't a prop, he said with complete calm. It's documentation, and before you dismiss it, you should know exactly where it came from. Trump rolled his eyes. Here we go, another media stunt. Fallon raised one hand slightly, not aggressively, just decisively. You'll get your turn. He turned toward the main camera. What's inside this envelope was not pulled from social media. It was not leaked by anonymous sources. It came from 3 independent verification streams, public records, private filings, and archived documentation. Each source verified separately, each document reviewed by legal analysts before this show went live tonight. The audience went completely silent. Trump's smirk was still there, but it had changed quality. His eyes moved to the envelope briefly, then back to Fallon. Fallon noticed it. He leaned forward slightly. Before I open this, I need you to answer something on record. You said earlier tonight that everything surrounding your family history is clean and straightforward. Do you still stand by that? Trump hesitated, a fraction of a second that the cameras caught and kept. Then he nodded. Of course I do. 100%. Fallon nodded back. Good, because once this opens, walking that statement back becomes considerably more difficult. Trump laughed again, louder, aiming for dominance. You're bluffing. You would not risk your career on fabricated paperwork. Fallon did not argue. That's exactly why we didn't rush this, he replied. Every page in here carries a chain of custody, dates, signatures, and verification stamps. If any piece was questionable, it did not make the cut. He tapped the envelope. The sound carried through the quiet studio. This is traceable. Trump leaned forward now, pointing. Then open it. Let's get this over with. Fallon did not move. Not yet, he said, because once it's open, this stops being entertainment and starts being accountability. The audience reacted audibly to that. Fallon continued. You've spent the first part of this show telling people how transparent you are, how nothing intimidates you. This is your moment to prove that wasn't just performance. Trump's jaw tightened. I don't need to prove anything to you, Fallon answered without hesitation. You don't need to prove it to me. You need to prove it to the cameras. Another beat of silence, heavy, physical. Fallon lifted the envelope slightly off the desk, holding it just high enough for the audience to see the seal clearly. The camera moved closer. Trump's eyes followed the envelope without intending to. Inside this, Fallon said, slower now, are documents that connect timelines you already confirmed tonight. That's why I let you talk first. That's why I asked the harmless questions at the beginning. Trump's posture shifted. You manipulated the conversation, he said. Fallon nodded without any hesitation. Yes, because truth doesn't emerge when people feel pressured. It comes out when they feel comfortable enough to stop being careful. Trump scoffed. You're acting like a prosecutor. Fallon's response was quiet and precise. No, I'm acting like someone who checked the facts before sitting down with you. He placed the envelope back on the desk with his hand flat on top. I'm not opening this yet, he said, but I want everyone watching to understand something clearly. He looked directly into the camera. This envelope exists. The evidence inside it is real, and it will be shown tonight. Trump stared at the envelope, no longer smiling. He tried to hold the smirk in place, but it had lost its foundation. The room had shifted around him without him being able to identify exactly when it happened. Fallon broke the seal. He slid the first document out slowly, not for theatrics, but to ensure every camera angle captured it cleanly. Let's start with something simple, he said, turning the page first toward Trump and then toward the main camera. These are verified timeline records, public appearances, travel logs, hospital visit timestamps. He pressed a button on the desk. The large studio screen behind them lit up with a split graphic, 2 columns running side by side. On the left, Trump's public schedule. On the right, the private records Fallon had just referenced. The audience leaned forward as one. You could hear people inhaling. Notice the overlap, Fallon said, pointing to the screen without any performance in his voice, just plain instruction. You said earlier tonight that this entire period was clean and straightforward. These timestamps describe something different. Trump shifted in his seat. That proves nothing, he said quickly. Fallon raised one finger without raising his voice. Let me finish. The room went quiet again. This window, 3 days, lines up with a series of private movements and undocumented interactions that were never publicly explained. Those same days correspond to private family interactions that were never disclosed, and those interactions connect directly to questions about Ivanka and the real circumstances surrounding Barron's early documentation. The audience reacted instantly, not murmurs this time, audible shock, people covering their mouths, the specific kind of gasp that comes when something long suspected is spoken aloud in a room full of cameras. Trump's face changed. The color in it shifted. The confident smirk was gone entirely for the first time. That's a lie, he said quickly, but his voice did not carry the weight it usually does. Fallon simply pointed to the screen. Look at the timestamps. Look at the overlap. Look at the gaps in the public record. You can deny the story. You cannot deny the clock. Trump tried to recover. You're twisting data. Fallon shook his head once, unhurried. I'm lining it up so people can see it clearly. He pressed forward without pausing. The timeline shows interactions that were never publicly acknowledged, followed immediately by legal and administrative changes that directly affected family documentation. Trump raised a hand. Stop. Fallon did not stop. You told this audience everything was transparent, but transparency doesn't leave gaps this size. The studio crew had stopped moving. Every person on the floor was still. Trump looked away from Fallon for the first time that evening, briefly, involuntarily, then back. You're trying to destroy my family on live television, he said. Fallon's response came immediately, calm, without cruelty. No, I'm showing the consequences of hiding behind half-truths for 20 years. He turned to the camera. What you're watching isn't gossip. It's sequence, cause and effect. One decision leads to another, and right now, your own timeline is working against you. Trump tried to interrupt again, louder. You don't get to control this. Fallon placed his hand flat on the desk, not in aggression, but in absolute finality. I'm not controlling it, he said. The facts are. That line landed like something structural had just given way. Fallon reached back into the envelope and pulled out a second document. Thicker, heavier, bearing official markings. He held it up just long enough for the camera to capture the header, then placed it flat. "This is a contract," he said quietly. Trump's eyes went straight to the paper. "That's fake," he said, reflexively and immediately. Fallon did not argue. He turned the document toward the main camera. "This agreement was drafted by your legal team in 2006, signed weeks before Melania's pregnancy became public, filed privately, never disclosed." He tapped a specific paragraph on the page. "Let me read this aloud." His voice stayed steady, each word placed deliberately. Clause 4B. "The receiving party agrees to permanent confidentiality regarding matters of family origin, lineage documentation, and associated personal history in exchange for lifetime financial security, asset protection, and residency guarantees." The gasp from the audience was audible and collective. Trump shook his head. "That's out of context," Fallon responded without looking up from the page. "There is no context that changes what those specific words say." He slid another page forward. "Here is the accompanying compensation schedule. Properties listed, monthly transfers, long-term asset arrangements." The studio camera moved in tight on the bottom of the page, on the signature, on the date, on the attorney's name printed cleanly above the line. The audience reacted the moment the name appeared on screen. Trump leaned forward, pointing. "Signatures can be forged. Anyone can do it." Fallon finally met his eyes directly. "That's why this document was verified through 2 independent legal archives and 1 federal record database. It's traceable, publicly searchable. Anyone watching at home can check it." Trump went still. The pause lasted only a moment, but the cameras stayed on his face for all of it. Fallon pressed on, without waiting for the silence to break. "This wasn't about love. It wasn't about privacy. It was about control." He gestured to the contract. "This agreement didn't just manage Melania's public role. It locked silence into place with legal architecture and financial pressure." Trump's voice rose. "You're turning a legal document into a conspiracy." Fallon shook his head slowly. "Prenuptial agreements don't contain clauses about family origin concealment. This one does." The audience murmured again, low and sustained. Fallon pointed back to the screen where the timeline graphic had returned beside the contract. "Watch this carefully," he said. "The contract date, the hospital visit window, the private travel gaps you confirmed yourself earlier tonight." He highlighted the overlap. "These 3 things align too precisely to be coincidental." Trump's face had tightened completely, jaw set, hands still on the armrests. He had stopped interrupting. Fallon leaned back, giving the information room. "This was not an accident. It was a structure, a legal framework built specifically to control what the public would never be permitted to see." Trump finally spoke again, quieter than before. "You don't understand how high-level families operate," Fallon answered immediately. "I understand exactly how power uses paperwork to hide." That line did not generate applause. It did not need to. The audience sat with it, letting it settle. Then Trump snapped, not loudly at first, but with the particular sharpness of someone who has realized that words and evidence have both stopped working for him. He leaned forward across the desk, dropping his voice, eyes fixed on Fallon. "You're playing a dangerous game, Jimmy," he said. "People who cross me don't usually walk away clean." The room reacted instantly. A wave of audible gasps moved through the audience. Someone in the front row said, clearly enough for nearby microphones to catch, "Oh my God!" The threat was not subtle, not coded, not political. It was direct, and it was live on national television. Trump straightened his jacket, trying to reconstruct authority. "You think this is funny? You think you're protected because there are cameras here?" Fallon did not move. He did not lean back. He did not flinch. He simply looked at Trump and let a full second pass before responding. That pause mattered enormously, because it let Trump's words echo in the room far longer than he had intended. Then Fallon spoke, with the quiet, even tone of someone delivering a diagnosis rather than an insult. "That wasn't strength," he said. "That was fear." The audience reacted, louder and more sustained than at any point in the evening. Fallon continued without raising his voice. "When someone runs out of facts, they reach for intimidation. That's not power. That's what panic looks like when it has nowhere else to go." Trump shook his head hard. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Fallon nodded once, completely composed. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A man who walked in here confident and now feels cornered." Trump tried to laugh it off. "You're manufacturing drama." Fallon did not take the exit being offered. "No, you created this moment. You had every opportunity to answer cleanly and directly. You chose threats instead." He leaned slightly forward, not aggressively, but with the finality of someone closing a chapter. "So let's be clear for the record. Are you standing by what you just said to me?" Trump hesitated. His mouth opened, then closed. "I'm saying people should be careful," he replied, vague and retreating. Fallon did not let him move away from it. "Careful about what? About facts? About documents? About telling the truth on live television?" The audience murmured. Trump shifted in his seat, adjusted his tie, buying the only currency he had left, which was time. "You're provoking me," he said. Fallon answered without delay. "No, I'm holding you accountable." He turned to the camera. Everyone watching just heard a public figure respond to documented evidence with a personal warning rather than an explanation. That is its own kind of answer. Then he turned back. That tells people everything they need to know. Trump's face had lost its architecture. The confidence that had carried him through the door was completely gone, replaced by something tighter, smaller, and far less certain. "You think this makes you brave?" Fallon shook his head slowly. "No. I think it shows how fragile power becomes when it can no longer control the story." Trump raised his voice one more time, reaching for the performance that had always rescued him before. "This show is nothing. You're nothing without your platform." Fallon looked at him quietly and replied, almost gently, "And yet here you are, trying to silence someone instead of answering them." The room went dead quiet. Trump looked around the audience, searching for the laughter or support that had always been available to him in rooms like this. He found neither. Some audience members were shaking their heads. Others stared at him with the expression of people watching something they cannot quite believe is actually happening in front of them. Fallon let the silence sit for precisely as long as it needed to. Then he spoke one final time with the calm and directness of someone wrapping up a case rather than winning an argument. "Let's put this together one last time," he said, turning toward the screen. 60 seconds. No emotion, just sequence. The graphic returned. Fallon spoke slowly and clearly, each point appearing on the screen as he named it. "You confirmed your travel schedule. We lined that up with the private movement gaps. Those gaps matched the undisclosed family interactions. The contract locked silence into place legally. The financial transfers followed immediately afterward. And the document update happened 48 hours after the hospital visit window you denied earlier tonight, triggering the exact contract clause we read aloud." He paused. "That is not coincidence. That is cause and effect." Trump stared at the screen. His jaw moved. Nothing came out. Fallon let the silence stretch until it became the room's entire substance. "This is why I asked you easy questions at the beginning," he said. "This is why I let you take control early. Because once you locked your story in, the documents did the rest." He walked closer, hands resting on the desk. "You walked in here believing confidence was enough. That volume was power. That intimidation would protect you when the evidence arrived." He paused one final time. "But control doesn't come from noise. It comes from preparation. And tonight, you brought the wrong tool to the conversation." Trump said nothing. He did not look at Fallon. He did not look at the audience. He stared straight ahead with the fixed, tight expression of someone watching something they built collapse, unable to stop it and unable to look away. The producer's voice came through the earpiece. Cut to break. The music came in, louder than usual, trying to cover the silence that did not want to be covered. The camera pulled back, but it could not undo what had just been captured. Trump did not stand, did not wave, did not offer the exit smile that usually closes a segment regardless of how it went. He sat completely still, blinking slowly, jaw set, as the studio lights adjusted around him. Within minutes, the clips were already moving. The envelope reveal, the timeline graphic, the threat, the silence that followed it, the final sequence. Each one cut and uploaded and spreading faster than the broadcast itself. By the time the commercial break ended, the story had left the studio and was everywhere else simultaneously. What made the night different was not the documents alone, and it was not even the confrontation. It was the structure underneath it, a patient, methodical strategy that began with easy questions specifically designed to build comfort and ended with evidence that the guest had already handed over the key to without realizing it. Trump came prepared to perform, Fallon came prepared to execute, and when the two things met under the studio lights with live cameras and a national audience watching, only one of them held. Power built on performance eventually requires an audience that agrees to keep applauding. When the applause stops, when the room goes quiet and the cameras stay on, what's left is the only thing that was ever actually there. That is what happened in the studio that night, and that is why the clips kept spreading long after the lights went down, because people do not share moments they forget. They share moments they need other people to witness. And this was one of those